Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the press conference of the United States of America national team ahead of the match against Wales. It's a pleasure to introduce people at the top table. Greg Berhalter, the head coach, player Tyler Adams, and Mike cameraman, the team press officer. Welcome all.
Thank you.
Before we start, I would like to remind you that there is simultaneous interpretation. Use your mobile and headset, select your language for this press conference, English or Arabic. And please don't forget to disable your hotspot. Use one of those languages for your questions. When you ask a question, announce your name, the organization you work for, and also to whom you address your question. I also would like to ask photographers to please shoot for the 5 minutes and then put down your cameras if you like to stay. Now the floor is open for your questions. Microphone here, please. There.
Grant Wall, grantwall.com. For Greg, the other teams, when they've come in here, it's been with their captain. Does that mean that Tyler is the captain for the U.S. team? And if so, what went into that decision? And Tyler, if so, your thoughts?
Hey, Grant. Nice to see a lot of familiar faces here. Yes, Tyler will be the captain for the World Cup. It was something where for the last 3.5 years, we've been working with the Leadership Council, and we're very open, and we asked them, hey, what do you guys want to do for the World Cup? And they thought it'd be better to have a captain named for the World Cup. And, we're proud to announce Tyler's the captain for the World Cup. We think he's, great leadership capabilities, and he leads by his actions and his words. So we're proud to have him as a captain.
Okay, yes.
Hi, I'm Paul Tenorio from The Athletic. This one is for Greg as well. When you go into this first game against Wales, Greg, you're choosing your starting 11. How much of it are you selecting based on the opponent's strengths and looking at players that match up best to defend against what they do well versus, because the result in that first game is so important, trying to put players on the field that you think maybe help you attack the opponent better and be maybe more proactive, I guess, versus reactive?
Grant, you want Tyler to answer the second part of that question?
Yeah, it's a huge honor for me, obviously, to be named captain of this team. Obviously, a very young team, but a lot of credit to my teammates because anyone throughout our leadership council can wear that armband and represent us with pride and represent us in the right way. So, yeah, I'm obviously representing us for this World Cup, but there's a bunch of guys in the team in our leadership council: Christian Pulisic, Weston, McKennie, Aaron Long. The list goes on and on and on. So we've established that we all lead in different ways, so that anyone can represent us on any given day and represent us well.
Next question, please.
Yeah, so sorry, I'll get back to you, Paul. We got kind of lost the order a little. So it's a combination. We're looking at the game in its entirety and thinking about how we can be successful. We want to be an aggressive team in this game. We want to be able to hurt them, but we also know that they have strengths and they have threats, and we want to be able to take them away. So, when picking a lineup, we focused on guys that we think can execute it from the onset, but also keeping in mind that our solutions are going to be really important in this game and throughout the World Cup. We know that it's not just the 11 on the field. We're going to need the solutions to come into the field and help this group get the win.
Good game.
It's always both, right? You have your game plan, which you hope that the group can execute, and then you have these moments that are unscripted and transition moments. moments where you're forced to compete in duels and win second balls and that stuff is hard to coach, but it's the mentality of the group. And what I've seen from this group, it has a strong mentality, and we're ready to compete in this game. We know Wales is going to be a highly competitive opponent. Our whole group is going to be competitive, and it's going to be our mindset that's going to help us get through the group stage.
Yeah, adaptability is obviously huge in football, and especially in tournament scenarios. He's going to come up with an amazing game plan. It's about how we can execute. But when they don't play exactly the way that we predicted, we have to be able to adapt to that. So one thing I'm confident about in our team is the mentality that we bring every single day. So we work on these things in training, but when it doesn't go right, we have a way to adapt always.
Hi, I'm Miguel Salek from Brazil Football Interior website. My question goes to the Greg Berhalter. Pleasure to ask you. What is your biggest challenge to manage the youngest age average in this tournament for this team? And talk about another challenge is you have talented players, however, they did what you missed to next step to fight against greatest teams like England and other European and South American national teams. Thank you.
I think that although we have a young team, and one correction is we're the second youngest team in the World Cup, right? We found that bit of trivia out yesterday. Ghana's number one. But it's a fantastic group of guys, and what I've seen is the maturity grow over the last 3.5 years with this group. And now I see a tremendous amount of focus within the team, and I think this focus is going to help us, go for success. And time's going to tell if we're able to play with the best teams in the world, right? We have the group stage of tournament. We'd love to get to the knockout stage to show what we can do, and then we go from there. But it's a talented group, a young group, but also a group filled with good character.
Hi, Alex Crook from TalkSport. This is a question for Tyler. Obviously, a lot will be made about how you're going to stop a player of the quality of Gareth Bale. But do you have a game plan for Kieffer Moore, who's a very unusual centre forward, a bit of a throwback? I think you faced him for Leeds already this season. How do you deal with that threat?
Yeah, he's a big threat. We figured that out playing against Bournemouth this year. He provides a completely different game plan to any team that you put him into. So, obviously he's amazing in the air, but he's probably very underrated in his technical ability and finishing around the goal. So, for our center backs, I've even already had a word with them. We talked about it in our scouting meeting already. You got to have a body on him at all times. He's a problem. So, being physical with him, trying to win balls off of him. Just a typical center back against good center forward battle. So it will be a tough one, but we have to stop him.
Stephen Goff of the Washington Post. For Tyler, take us back to those early days in Cary and some of those other camps when this group, this nucleus, first came together. Where you've come to get to this point on the eve of a World Cup and the development and progress you've made.
Yeah, it feels a little bit surreal sitting here now. Obviously, the night before you have the opportunity to play in your first World Cup match. When we talk about Cary and the opportunities that we had then in the beginning of my national team experiences, Greg wasn't even taken over as coach yet. We had no identity, no game plan. It was almost just like you were going to national team camp for fun. And although we're enjoying the ride and having fun here, the past 3 years have been a lot of hard work of building our identity. I know in the first couple of years, it was hard to even have our best players in camp. We were facing injuries and didn't have the time to build chemistry, but that obviously didn't stop us or wavering us from the development that we've made now. So if we look at the team now and myself and everyone, where we've come compared to the 3 years ago, a lot has changed, and a lot has changed for the better, which is good.
Yes, please.
Thanks. Brian Strauss from Sports Illustrated. This is for you, Greg. When we talked in August, you said your biggest concern was that we underestimate the gravity of the World Cup, like we underestimated the first window of qualifying. And I asked you, what are you going to do about it? And you said, ask me when we get there. So here we are. What are you going to do about it?
That's great follow-up right there. Seriously. My gosh, yeah. No, you know, it is a great question because that was a major concern of mine then. And what I could honestly say is how I've seen this group focus and shift has been incredible. And it's not just talk anymore. You know, we talk about our goals of what we want to do at the World Cup, but then, you know, then I'm looking at actions, I'm looking at training, I'm looking at off the field, I'm looking at how guys are interacting with each other. And I have to say that, you know, I'm confident that this group is ready to play. And, you know, a lot of it has to do with their mindset and their ability to support each other.
Yes, please.
Martin Rogers, Fox Sports. Hey, Greg. Greg, for some of you young players, tomorrow is going to be some nerves and some motivation. Where do you want their emotional balance to be? Closer to the fiery side or closer to the calm side?
Another good question. I think that, you know, for us to be successful in this game, we're going to need to be competing at a very high level. So it's just get the guys understanding that from the onset of what we need to bring in this game. But the other side of it is that, you know, they've all played in football matches. They've all played in big football matches. And at the end of the day, this is just another football match. And I hope that calms them, and I hope we can focus on our execution and competing in this game.
Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Alex Hogan with Fox News. So ahead of the World Cup, there was a lot of conversations about what this would look like in voicing opposition to human rights violations and supporting LGBTQ rights. Now, being here on the ground, Greg, what is the stance that the U.S. team is making? And for Tyler, a couple days ago, the U.S. team played with some migrant workers. Were you able to have any conversations with them and learn about their experience?
I could start off. You know, for us, very similar to efforts that we've done stateside is we have this mantra of be the change. And for us, it's about starting with the individual and understanding that every individual has a right or an obligation to promote change on their own level. And that's something that we've been focused on as a group, as a federation, as a team. And you know, I think the campaign has been successful. We started educating the players about 18 months ago on what's going on in Qatar. And from my perspective, there's been some positive things, and there's still also some work to do. But this World Cup, I think, can help bring awareness to some of that. And that's why I think Be the Change is right in line with trying to bring awareness to some of the potential issues here.
Yeah, and for me, it was an amazing opportunity to speak with some of the people that took part in building the stadiums that obviously we have an amazing opportunity to play in, beautiful stadiums. And correct me if I'm wrong, it was Generation Amazing, the group. And it was people that have a huge interest in football. So they were so passionate about the quality of building those stadiums, and they all had a favorite stadium, and having those conversations with them and which games they're looking forward to was really interesting and intriguing.
Hi, Malin from NRK Norway. There's been a lot of reactions especially in Europe, after Gianni Infantino's speech yesterday. What are your thoughts on what he said during the press conference?
You know, he's obviously the president of FIFA, and you know, he expresses his opinions as he sees fit. We're here to you know, to play soccer. We're here to represent the United States, and we don't necessarily represent the views of Infantino, and that's just the way it goes. He has the right to express that, and we have the right to have our opinions.
Question for Greg. David McDonald from the Daily Mirror. Going back to the age of the squad, can the kind of lack of experience, if you like, in a sense maybe work in your favour because players are unburdened by past failures, they're not fazed you know, by this kind of stage before. Can that, in a sense, work to your advantage?
Yeah, it could, but it's also one of those things that we can speculate whether it's a disadvantage or an advantage, you know, for hours here, but the truth's going to come out when we actually play the game, right? And what I would say is we're just not making any excuses for ourselves. And we are who we are, and we want to go out and we want to compete.
This is for Tyler. Glenn Crooks, Sirius XMFC. So Tyler, you've back to the youth and the big moment. Maybe it was your first pro match, maybe it was your first Bundesliga match, maybe it was your first EPL match. But how do you overcome those sort of nerves? What is it in a game that happens, or what do you do maybe in preparation for the game so that you're as stable as possible?
Yeah, I mean, I think that for me, what I always like to think about is that pressure is a privilege. You know, when you're playing under pressure, it means that it really matters to you and it's really meaningful. So fortunately for me, I've played in a lot of games where you feel pressure, but that means because there's something on the line. So, you know, for me, the biggest thing is, you know, I want to represent this team in the right way, represent my family in the right way. And you're playing for something a lot bigger than yourself. You're playing for all the people in the U.S. that are watching and supporting you. So that's what kind of settles me, is that, you know, I know we have this support system that's been unbelievable. My family supports me, the coaches, the players, and we've built that now over the past 3 years, and we want to continue building it.
He doesn't have a problem with pressure. I remember when he was 17 years old, playing against the Red Bull with Columbus, and it was difficult. He was all over the place.
Yeah, we won.
Okay.
Hi, Howell Griffith from BBC News. Question for both. You've spoken about Wales's strengths and threats. What are those strengths and threats, and how do you go about neutralising them?
It's a good team. I mean, I've said all along, and you probably heard me say this, that I think they're underrated. They have an experienced team, international competition experience, solid back line, robust players, very physical, talent, difference makers up top. With Bale, James, Kieffer, Moore, solid midfield, wing backs that get forward. So overall, I think it's a really solid team. And for us, the starting point is, again, I've said this 6 times already, but it's just matching their intensity and coming with a competitive mindset, because we know that's going to be needed in the match.
Yeah, I mean, follow up to what the coach says about the team, basically everything that he said. I've had the opportunity to play against a lot of these guys now in the Premier League, and one thing you have to be ready for is the competitive nature of these guys, because they will battle until the end of the game.
Thank you, lady.
Tonella Gonzalez, Telemundo Deportes. Coach Greg, I would like to ask you about what are you feeling right now? You live a match -1 as a player. Do you have a flashback about that day, and was it different?
Yeah, you know, I think what's successful for me to navigate through tournaments like this and moments like this is just stay focused, stay in the present. So, you know, right now I'm just engaged in this press conference, focused on the questions, and when we leave, you know, we'll focus on other things. But it's really about just staying in the moment. It's a great event. I think, as Tyler said, you know, there's a tremendous amount of pride to be able to represent our country at this event, and it's something we take really seriously. And, you know, we're excited for the group, the staff, and for all the fans watching back at home.
This is for both of you to speak about Tyler and to follow up on what you both said about him and his leadership. So, Greg, you talked about that first experiences with him, and people have been talking about you back to when you first signed your first team contract, I think you were 15, as having that presence and that confidence. And I can imagine that's a tough line to walk for a young player. And from a coach's perspective as well, how you can kind of tell, you know, that special kind of personality and how they find that balance of confidence and humility.
Yeah, he negotiated that contract also at 15, by the way. No, Tyler's a guy that's just mature beyond his years, and you notice it from the minute you start talking to him. And, you know, I can go on and on about his, you know, the strengths of Tyler, but I think the other thing about him is his humility. And he's a guy that the teammates know exactly what they're going to get from him. They know that he's going to go out on the field and compete. They know that he's going to be thinking about the game. They know that he's going to be into the details of the game, you know, not just a competitor, he's also a strategist. And I think that helps the group, because, you know, he calms people down, and he's a guy that people get behind.
Yeah, for me, I mean, one thing at the end of the day that I always want to do is I want to be a winner. So first off, I'm very competitive. So I want to hold the guys around me to the same standard. I don't want to lose and then have to point the finger and say, you let me down today. I just want to make sure that everyone's on the same page, intensity-wise, mentality-wise, no frustration. We all buy into the same thing. And yeah, I think I've been doing that since a young age. And also, as much as I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses as well. And I want people to criticize me. I'm open to feedback all the time, and I want to get better and improve.
Yes, please.
Hi, Greg and Tyler. Sam Staskell from The Athletic. Greg, this one is for you. Weston and Serginho said yesterday that they're feeling good, feeling fit. Obviously, both have been dealing with some injuries, some knocks. Do you feel like they're ready for 90 minutes? What is their level of fitness from your perspective? And have you decided on your starting 11? If so, have you communicated it to the players?
We're working through that. We're pretty much done, but a couple things to keep working on. In terms of Weston and Serginho, they've made great progress. We see them as being able to take part in the game. For how long, we have to see. But that's the beauty of having 5 substitutes. They can either come into the game or we can start them and take them out of the game when we feel that they're getting close to that threshold. But both of them, I think, are definitely in position to help this team tomorrow.
Yes, please.
Simon Davis from BBC Wales. Greg, how aware are you of just how an emotional occasion it'll be for Wales tomorrow, given that they haven't qualified since 1958? And do you think that emotion could affect their performance, for better or for worse?
I think that's the beauty of the World Cup. There's always emotion associated with it, every game. And give them a ton of credit. They're back in the World Cup after a long time off. They've played in Euro championships and done a good job there. But it's also, it will be emotional for us also after missing out on the last one and now taking this young group back to the World Cup. We're going to be excited as well. I think for both teams, it's about balancing. Right, using that emotion in a positive way, but still not taking away from the execution side of it.
Next question, please. Here, second row.
A follow-up, Ron Blum from AP, a follow-up to Sam's question. In addition to those two, Luka, are there any other players who are not 90 minutes fit and still trying to work their way back?
Yeah, I think there are. And, just working through that and figuring out, who has what minutes in them. But there will be players. Luka is a great example of one. And, maybe a couple others as well.
Who are the others?
A couple of them.
Okay.
Greg, you mentioned, you clarified that the squad is the second youngest in the competition. Can you talk about how much of a testament that is to the work that's been done in US football to bring through players? Sometimes it doesn't get mentioned to where you are now. And also a question for you, Tyler. You talked about the journey that you started and when you arrived to get to where you are now. A lot of professionalism in the squad now. But at the start, if you could just talk about, so we can get an appreciation of where you are now from where it was at the beginning.
Yeah, obviously, at the beginning when I came into the national team picture, we had just come off the brink of not qualifying for the World Cup. So a little bit in the dumps of the frustration and the aggravation of, the media getting on the older players of U.S. soccer. They probably don't get enough credit for what they built and gave us the opportunity to do. But now you have a coach that comes in and tactically understands the game better than almost every coach that I've ever had. And he puts a plan in place of, really wanting to develop the players, these young players, giving them the opportunity, having that belief in them. And that was different than what U.S. soccer had done in the past. Obviously, we relied heavily on experience. And, when I came into the picture, we started to challenge the ideas and the theories that U.S. soccer had believed in for a long time. And, when you build this plan and you start to develop the system, you can really bring any young player into the system and allow them to thrive. So, now as we've obviously developed, you have, probably a bunch of guys under 25 that have 30, almost 40 caps now. And we have a little bit more of that international experience. But that wouldn't have been possible if we didn't qualify for the World Cup and we don't bring in a coach and a plan.
Coach.
Yeah. So I think the efforts began probably 12, 15 years ago with U.S. Soccer and the MLS clubs starting the Development Academy and just being very intentional, similar to how they overhauled it in England, and really setting standards, holding the academies accountable for the development pathway, creating a development pathway. And, 15 years later, you see the fruits of that labor. And, for us, it's an incredible generation that we have, but we also have to be focused on what comes next and that we continue to produce, talents like Tyler.
If I could just add for you, not only the second youngest team in the World Cup, it's the second youngest team the U.S. has brought to a World Cup, the youngest being the 1990 World Cup squad.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Yes, this is Paul Kennedy from Soccer America, and my question, Greg, is the other day FIFA said that all teams have been met with the refereeing committee to talk about how they're going to approach the game. Any takeaways in terms of what you want your players to keep in mind about that? And also any tips on how you view the Qatari referee who will do your match?
Yeah, I'm going to do some. I just found that out in the backstage room there about the referee, and we'll do some digging on him and get some information. The referee meeting was very straightforward. They talked about handballs, and we still have no idea how they're calling them. Right? Pretty straightforward. A couple of nuances with the offside rule that they're working with, and then challenges. They want the game to be aggressive but fair, and we don't blame them. They talked about some VAR issues, or not issues, how they're going to use VAR and the semi-automated offsides. So overall, I think we'll be in a good spot with VAR and offsides.
Thank you, Coach. We have time to take 2 questions. One, please start, and then pass the microphone to your colleague in front of you.
Ryan Tolmich from Goal. This is for Tyler. I wanted to ask about the Leadership Council. Greg obviously came in and kind of empowered you guys to kind of take control of this national team, whether that was a few of you guys who were 20, 21 and started to define it, and then guys like Aaron Long who had been around, to guys like Tim Ream who've been around, and kind of asked you guys to build this from within and define what this team's going to look like on the field, off the field, in training, in the hotel, everything like that. So when you look back at the formation of that leadership council and how it's kind of evolved over the years to the point where you're kind of going to be the face and the captain of it, how have things changed? How have you changed as a leader? How's Weston changed as a leader? And how has it kind of evolved into how this team got to this point where you have this group of guys together?
Yeah, so coming into the national team, you're a newbie, right? You don't want to step on anyone's toes. You want to come in, you want to do your job. And although that hasn't changed now compared to when I first came into the national team, now I'm the guy that people rely on when they need to communicate with Greg and something needs to be said, or maybe training was a little bit too intense and we're feeling a little bit fatigued, so the next day needs to be a little bit lighter. Guys have the confidence within the group to come to me, to come to Weston, to come to Christian, to come to those guys. And although Christian has had more experience, DeAndre's had more experience, you have guys that are respectively captains of their own teams, like Aaron Long, like Walker Zimmerman, that have different qualities, and it makes us a more diverse group. So, when we first came into the group, we were nowhere ready to be a single leader within the team. I was 19 or 20 years old, and I've learned a lot, and I've had obviously a lot more games and experiences and learning from everyone in our environment. So, thankfully now I've obviously grown in a lot of different ways, and so has everyone else in our leadership council. But we've all learned from each other, picked off ideas from each other, and we feel free to express ourselves in the group, which is good.
The last question, please.
Hi, this is Rob Phillips from BBC Wales. Question first to Greg.
Where is he? I don't see him. Your camera.
Yeah.
Oh, there you are.
I'm pretty short, so I understand. Don't worry. In the context of the group, do you consider England as favourites? And in that context, do you consider it's important not to lose the first game in tournament football? And for Tyler, you've got a Welshman on your coaching staff at Leeds United, Cameron Toshak. Have you been picking his brains about the Wales players?
start?
Yeah, go for it.
No, I got to send him a text and ask for a full scouting report on that. But obviously, yeah, he was at Swansea. He's coached a bunch of the players before as well. So, but I've played with a few of the players as well, like Ethan Ampadu and Dan James now. So I look forward to having the opportunity to play against them again.
Yeah, for us, I consider England one of the favorites of the World Cup. With the squad they have, with the depth they have, I'm getting some eyes here and up in front row. With their international experience in the last two major tournaments, coming in second place and fourth place, it's a really talented squad. But I also know that on the football pitch, anything can happen. So for us, it's about being confident, being brave, and going out there and competing for 90 minutes and doing what it takes to get results. They talk a lot about the first game, being really important. We know that, and we're going to be focused on it. But I also know that, anything's possible. So we're looking at it one game at a time, staying focused on one opponent at a time, and come Tuesday, we'll start focusing on how to prepare for England.
Okay, thank you very much for being here today. And the last reminder, US team will have the training session at 9 p.m. at Al Gharafa Stadium. First 15 minutes will be open for the media. Thank you very much. Coach, thank you.
Thank you.